Big story we're tracking this evening. Doctor morality strikes again. Union Health Minister Dr. Harsh Vardhan says that sex education in schools should be banned after suggesting that to prevent age fidelity in marriages was better than use of condoms. Health Minister Harsh Vardhan landing himself in the middle of yet another controversy, this time stating on his website that sex education should be banned in schools and schools should focus on getting children more engaged in cultural activities and value education. Joining us on the phone line is our correspondent Mosmi Singh, who got us this breaking piece of news. In fact, she's also reporting that Dr. Harsh Vardhan has now done a U-turn, saying that this is something he had said in 2007 with regards to an adolescent education program being introduced to the UPA government. Mosmi, another major controversial statement made by Union Health Minister Dr. Harsh Vardhan. What's the kind of response that we're seeing from the social sector and other political parties?
That's right, Simi. Harsh Vardhan has found himself in the middle of a controversy yet again. His previous row was created when he spoke about AIDS control campaign and morality. This time again, he has been caught saying that sex education should be banned in schools. He himself is a medical practitioner, and it's surprising that yet again a bizarre comment comes from the health minister, though he has clarified his stand, but he is being criticized in all circles in the medical fraternity for having conservative views. He had given a piece of cultural advice with the AIDS control program, and now yet again he is talking about morality and value-based sex education, though he is pointing out that he had specifically critiqued the UPA model of sex education that was way back in 2007. It is in his website that he had said against the UPA sex education program, and that could not be called sex education because of the crude and graphic representation, which was culturally objectionable. But questions are being raised on the stance taken by the health minister, considering that he has been propagating morality as far as AIDS control campaign is concerned and changing the communication strategy. So the question is that is Dr. Morality going to preach morality or talk on specific medical grounds?
Absolutely. Mosmi, stay on with us. We're also being joined by callers who are calling into headlines today, and the numbers flashing on your screens. We're being joined by Arijit from Jamshedpur. Arijit, how do you respond to this bizarre statement coming from the Union Health Minister, who himself is a doctor?
Well, I frankly think that, he should be concentrating more into the important aspects that has been happening currently. But, being the health minister, if he is commenting something like this, it's not appropriate, I think.
Absolutely. And, Arijit, sex education is an important aspect of any education. We're also getting responses from other civil rights activists saying that this is basically a propagation of RSS agenda. This is something that the opposition is also likely to take up in a bigger way.
Yeah, I agree. But, sex education is something, it's a very important aspect that should be covered in schools and other institutes, because, children even should be aware what are the various boundaries which is actually agreeable and not agreeable to a child. So it is very important and should be covered in respective schools and institutes.
Absolutely. Arijit, thanks so much for calling in and sharing your views. We're also being joined now by our second caller for the evening. Ankit has joined us from Mumbai. Ankit, go ahead. What's your first reaction?
Well, Simi, my first reaction is that I'm actually appalled that an ENT doctor, somebody who's actually studied to be a doctor, would even think of making such comments, and not just thinking on speaking them loud, actually put it up on his personal website. That is perhaps the most appalling, thing about this one particular statement. But actually, if you look back, it isn't an isolated statement. Just a few days ago, he talked about condoms and how perhaps fidelity is more important than using condoms, which is in many ways, one of those old, really old morality explanations which used to be given back in the 80s, not even now. In the 80s, when the first HIV crisis had begun, this is when they used to say, oh, if only you started having sex only with your partner, this would have never happened. Well, I'm sorry to say, but that is not how the world works. And this doctor should perhaps concentrate a little more on the work at hand instead of making these really, really bizarre comments.
Absolutely. This is someone who will be looking after the country's health policy for the next 5 years. Clearly some major issues that need to be addressed. Ankit, thanks so much for speaking to Headlines today. We're getting our third caller for the evening. V. Barucha has called us from Goa. Mr. Barucha, go ahead.
Good evening. What is wrong with what Dr. Harsh Vardhan said? After 65 years of independence, what we have taught, and today what we have got, a morality is the lowest in the world values in India. What is wrong what he said? Yoga and what are the good moral values has to be taught at the school level. What is wrong in it?
Mr. Barucha, don't you think that schools should also educate young children about safe sex? AIDS is a problem that countries worldwide are battling with. What is so wrong with sex education? Why is that being compared to something vulgar? It's actually part of your education. Mr. Barucha, are you still with us? All right, we seem to have... All right, we'll try and reconnect to another caller. The big story we're tracking, Union Health Minister Dr. Harsh Vardhan saying that sex education should be banned in schools. Is this a morality debate? How can somebody who's in charge of the country's health policy write something like this on his website? This is a statement that was put up on the website. It was part of his vision document for Delhi schools posted in 2007. We're getting another caller, Mr. Bhattacharjee, who's calling us from...
Hello?
From Assam. Yes, sir, go ahead. What's your first reaction?
I'm deeply supporting this drive what has been made by the India government, because the ban on, I'm also professionally a teacher of the CBSE basic school.
Okay.
And this, I think what they have been implemented, the vulgarity is out in values in, I support. Dr. Harsh Vardhan has he's full of wisdom, and at very right time he has took this decision. Because while we are teaching all these things, we are also facing some taboo incident inside the classroom. So this is actually necessary to abolish from the textbook, and the values should be incorporated. That's my version, sir. Madam.
All right. Surprisingly, some words of support also coming in from the Union Health Minister when he talks about banning sex education in schools. We're being joined by Anjali Gopalan, civil rights activist, on the phone line. Anjali Gopalan, how do you react to this bizarre statement by the Union Health Minister saying that introducing sex education in schools actually leads to immoral behavior?
I don't know where the minister gets this information from, number one. Number two, please understand that the world over, studies have constantly indicated that where sex education is part of the school curriculum, young people, the pregnancy rates in young people, the sexually transmitted infection rates in young people has gone down tremendous. I think the minister fears and is very worried and is concerned that if we talk about sex, everyone's going to get sexually active. But we're talking about age-appropriate information, which young people need to make the right choices and decisions. Why can't we trust them to make the right choices and decisions? What is it that's worrying us so much that we are feeling completely like we need to take it out of any kind of discussion? It's not making sense at all to me.
Absolutely. Anjali Gopalan, just a few days ago, Union Health Minister Harsh Vardhan had made another controversial statement where he said that promotion of condoms in the fight against AIDS should not be emphasized. What needs to be emphasized is the purity of relations between husbands and wives. So clearly this is someone who believes in morality over basic science.
Absolutely. He has a certain way of thinking. But, as a politician, I'm sure, isn't he in touch with the reality of what's happening in this country? Doesn't he realize what's happening? I think when I look at it in my kind of work, one of the things I've always felt very strongly is we're a highly sexually active culture. So what is he talking about? Why are we constantly sweeping these kind of issues under the carpet? What is worrying him? I cannot understand why he's so scared, why he doesn't accept the reality, and why he won't speak the truth.
Absolutely. What's so wrong with embracing sexuality? Anjali Gopalan, thanks so much for speaking to Headlines today. We're also being joined by another caller, Ranajay, who's called in from Kolkata. Ranajay, how do you respond to this statement made by the Union Health Minister?
That's what I want to say. What's wrong in the statement? Like, this sex education, if it's given at home, parents should impart that thing to their children. Okay, there should not be any hue and cry about it. Okay, if it's done in school, why not yoga? Fine, it's well and good. It's a good thing. Even if girls go for yoga, they can also learn ways.
No, Ranajay, this is not about yoga. We're not talking about yoga. Union Health Minister Dr. Harsh Vardhan is saying that sex education should be banned in schools because it leads to an early initiation of sexuality in youngsters. Do you agree with that statement?
That's what I'm saying. What's wrong in the statement? If sex education has to be imparted, the parents should take in confidence of their words. No one but parents should impart those things to their children. They should be the one who should be giving such kind of information to the children. It's not something to be taught in public. It's not something to be taught in school.
All right. Thanks so much for calling in and sharing your views, Ranajay. We're also being joined by Abhina Abhir, activist on the phone line. Abhina Abhir, how do you react to this statement?
Honestly, I don't know how to react to it because I think there's something wrong with it. One after another, Mr. Harsh Vardhan is giving a statement which are really making people suspicious about a lot of things. What I have to react about this statement is that sex education is very, very important in the schools. Sex education do not only restrict to sexual acts, it restricts to information about sex, sexuality, gender. It also relates to information regarding to the personal hygiene. It also relates to the information related to positive living. So I think people who are talking about sex education are creating an issue about sex and considering sex as a taboo. It is very important at this point of time to talk about the sex education in the school because our kids, the youngsters, the young people are getting exposed to the media. The young people are getting exposed to the technology, which is making them curious about sexual acts, about sexual behavior at a very early age.
Absolutely. This is something that needs to be recognized that sex education in schools is not the only way through which students are coming to know about sex. Another aspect of this debate, Abhina, is that there seems to be a fear of sexuality, an attempt to brush everything under the carpet and not talk about sex at all.
Why are we doing that? I seriously don't know about it. And the fact remains is that, it is very interesting because when we talk about sexual activity, what is wrong with it? I mean, what is wrong with having a sexual life? Sex is an integral part of a healthy marriage system. And if an individual isn't prepared into the school along with any other thing, what is wrong with it? There are many times when children and youth do not share a comfortable relationship with their parents about talking about these things. And out of that, a lot of time they experiment. I remember I got an information about sexual education from some B grade movies and some C grade magazines. I don't want that to happen to any of the other child. The child has a right to know about sexual reproductive health. The child has to know about his own body. The child has to know what is going wrong with his body, how the development process is happening, how the baby should be born, and it has to be knowing about it right at the right time so that a child is aware about how to protect him and how to be safe from sexually transmitted illnesses, HIV infections, because right now new infections in India is also constantly increasing. These are all related activities. And unless and until you do not talk about prevention, how do you prevent from the prevention? I don't understand. And when we talk about Mr. Harsh Vardhan is saying that parents should talk about it. Do you think all the parents are educated? Do you think all the parents? We are talking about a country where people switch the channel, even heroine start kissing on their lips.
Absolutely.
And here we are expecting that is the parents will sit in front of their kids and say that this is what it is.
Absolutely. The big question, are we a society which is shying away from addressing issues of any kind of sexuality? Thanks so much, Abhina Ahir, for speaking to Headlines today. We're also being joined by Sudha Sundaram, an activist on the phone line. Ms. Sundaram, your first reaction.
Yes, I think the health minister is exhibiting a totally unacceptable conservative mindset towards girls and their right to know about themselves, their functions, their bodies. I mean, in this day of scientific development, not to push for sex education in schools, it's really quite a regressive mentality. And I'm very sorry that the health minister has taken such a stance. As a matter of fact, at a time when marriages are getting pushed back, age of marriage has got pushed back, which is a very good thing. Young girls and boys are moving together is a very good thing. But the need for sex education has become imperative.
Thank you, Ms. Sundaram, for speaking to Headlines today. This is the big story. We'll continue tracking vulgarity out, values in. Union Health Minister says sex education should be banned in schools. Is this the need of the hour? You can call us on the numbers flashing on your screens, and we'll allow you to participate in this debate.